I have to tell you, I have the best privilege today of introducing our guest speaker. She's a dear friend of mine. She also knows the inner workings of life choices, which does include a lot of laughter, chocolate, some tears, but a little bit of everything in there. And this is Timmerie, and she worked with us for 5 years as the Director of Community Outreach and Education. And currently, she's on the radio. Is it 5 days a week, Timmerie? I don't know, you're on all the time. Every time you're always on.
11 o'clock, is it?
Which is Trending with Timmerie, her own show. She holds a master's degree in biblical theology and a bachelor's degree in communications media from John Paul the Great University. And I have to tell you, in all my life, I've never had anyone inspire me more. This young girl who I met years ago, and she has kind of a high voice. I thought, who's that little girl? Talk about strength and boldness. It was through Timmerie that my eyes were open to this generation, because they are going to see overturning of Roe v. Wade. They're going to see the amazing answer to prayers that God is going to have this happen, and she's a big part of it. And talk about courageous. I asked her today, I said, in trouble? She's always in trouble. She's always in trouble, because what she talks about are things the enemy doesn't want us to even mention. And she said, well, just a little, that's fine, it's good. So she's always in trouble, which is great. I would like to give to you this beautiful woman, Timmerie. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Maybe it's afternoon now. Thank you, Liz, for that kind introduction. It's my joy to be with all of you. Some of you, or many of you, are familiar faces. Again, my name is Timmerie, and I had the great opportunity to work at Life Choices for a number of years. I remember when Emily was there and helped intercede in saving her family members. And it's just incredible when people stand up to save one life, how that one life can save and change so many others. And I imagine many of you who have children and family members feel the same way. They transform and change who we are. So I'd like to begin. Our theme for today is celebrating life through the generations. And I really became involved in pro-life work because of the home that I lived in. I grew up in a very pro-life home, to say the least. Now, I'll get in a moment into how my parents helped open up a maternity home, a safe house for women who were in crisis pregnancy. But upon pondering what I speak about today, I actually realized that my pro-life home goes much deeper than that. This week, a dear family friend had a child. And in the hours leading up to that baby's birth, nearly about 60 hours of labor. The last couple hours, we started to receive text messages from the father to all of our family. We had a group text, just my immediate family. And he said, over the years, when I would visualize what I wanted my life to look like, it would always take me back as I close my eyes to the backyard in your house, to the dinners we have with your family members. And so there's always something different about being there. And this is a young man who came from a broken home, broken family. And it really made me pause and ponder how I always have kind of made the joke that my parents had this tendency for taking in the lost boys. And as I've thought about this, oh gosh, I can't tell you the number of people who have been in and out of our home, who have faced crisis pregnancy situations, drug abuse, needing just a place to get away from the difficulties of life. That my parents have had these people over the years, and not every story ends well, but at least for the time, those people knew that they could come there as a safe haven, that there was something different. And I would hazard to tell you that that something different that was present in our home was a home of faith and a home that affirmed life. And that's why I really do say why this dear friend ended up getting married and had that baby girl this week. I think that had he not had that example, after seeing years of his own trials and tribulations, he could have been in a different place today. And I remember sending a little message to my mom, and I said, that would not be happening if you had not created the home environment that you did. And I said, and it's not just him. And I started naming 5 different people that came to mind. I said, you guys have loved and parented people all these years. And that points to the reason why, at one point, they were called to open up a maternity home called Veronica's Home. When I was still an only child, my parents ended up packing up our own home to go and be basically the house parents to a home, and they were just in their, late 20s, essentially, going to run a home for women who, we had some women who were looking for a safe haven from the drug cartel, who were being chased down by the drug cartel. We had women who were coming from abusive relationships. We had very, very young girls fresh out of high school. And I lived there in the maternity home with these little babies running in the ground whose lives would not have been there that day if it weren't for that home. And the many people just like yourselves who were willing to stand up, speak up, and also put their money where their mouth was with regard to the issue of abortion and human life. And so that was my pro-life experience, believe it or not, and I want you guys to remember this. I don't want to go into much of my story today, but despite growing up in a pro-life home, I remember when I was about 12, 13, laying in my bed one day. The walls were red, I had 3 younger siblings, we were all sharing a room at the time. And I remember thinking, well, if a woman doesn't want to have her baby, if the baby might be in lowly circumstances, poor, abused, whatever it might be, why can't the woman just not have her child? And I, on my own, thought maybe I am okay with abortion, despite my parents, day in and day out, doing the incredible work that they did, particularly my mom. I thought, well, maybe I'm okay with abortion. Let me tell you, this is the moral relativism that is so prominent in our culture. Young people are more pro-life than ever before, but the problem is that they're not holding completely to that pro-life conviction. They make the excuses. They begin to justify when a difficult situation comes up. Yet we know better. We know the resources that are available, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So despite the environment I grew up in, I started to become a slave of the modern ideology that it is okay for women to carry the wound of abortion because that changes a woman for forever. And I thought it's okay to end a baby's life. But when I was 13, I saw a video showing what abortion was, and I went, that's not just not having a baby. That's the brutal dismemberment of a human being. And for anyone who might be here who carries that wound of having gone through an abortion, I want you to know that life choices, myself, we have nothing but compassion. Understand that that was no light decision. In fact, it was a life-changing decision that you carry with you, and I hope that you know that Life Choices has its doors open to help give you the resources you need to heal from an abortion. If that's you or someone you know, because that's part of the work that Life Choices does. So recently we celebrated the feast day of St. Mother Teresa. She didn't die that long ago, yet there's a reason she's already a saint. Now I mentioned that my mom helped open up a maternity home, and they ran it for a period of time, living directly there. But during the course of being heavily involved in Veronica's home, my mom had the opportunity to communicate via letter with this saint. And St. Mother Teresa communicated with her about how today, and she was praising her for the work of the maternity home, the great need we have in our culture is those who are in the midst of spiritual poverty. And she specifically referred to the issue of abortion. And I think of that little nun who I can imagine, I'm wearing heels, so I barely make it up to the mic, but her head might barely peek over the top of this little podium here, if that. This little nun who had her sisters there in Calcutta ministering to the poor, and yet she received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. And in an audience full of many people who were very in favor of abortion at the time, at the close of her speech, she's known for a comment that some of you may have heard before. People misquote her and claim that she said, "Go home and love your families." In fact, she said so much more than that, and it does no service to what she said when we limit it to this. She said in her closing statement after receiving that Nobel Peace Prize, essentially I'm paraphrasing here as well, but I hope that your home is a house of prayer, that you allow into your home prayer, and with prayer that you allow in truth. And because of that prayer and truth that reigns within your home, you're going to have a love for Christ, a love for the poor in Christ. And that love that reigns first within your home, then will go out to your neighbor. And she actually refers immediately to your neighbor there in your own country. So you don't have to come to Calcutta. You don't have to go across the world to do missionary work. Start right here in your home, go to your neighbor, and then go out to the world. And she ends by asking me, God, give us the courage to protect the unborn child. And think about her courage. I mean, just imagine. Very, very pro-abortion people. I mean, the Clintons were incredibly radically pro-abortion, all the way up to being okay with infanticide. We're right there in the front row in front of her. And she said, may God give us the courage to protect human life. That's my prayer for all of you. Believe me, I get it. It is not easy. And sometimes people will say, how do you talk about the topics that you discuss? And I'm reminded that courage is a virtue we have to pray for. But courage does not mean that the fear is gone. Courage is acting in the face of fear. I want you to remember that. Courage is acting within the face of fear. It will always be there. And you will always be persecuted for having a pro-life voice. We could tell many stories. That's another talk, another day. Let's focus on the good stuff. And so I want to remember those who have gone before us. I look to the work of Liz and the incredible influence she has had on me and her dedication, and to the point at times of standing in front of an abortion clinic, risking and facing arrest because she's willing to speak up loud enough for that woman who's walking up to that door. I think of the work of my parents in opening up that maternity home and the safe haven they created. And let me tell you, even to the point, and I know Liz has opened her doors to women in need. I remember at one point, one of those children, the mother was not able to stay with the child after birth. And where did that baby end up living? It ended up living in our home for a period of time. I gave up my bed. I was a brat. I was an only child. And I remember this little baby boy would pick his nose and wipe the boogers all over the bed. And I was so upset. How disgusting, right? And it wasn't until years later I recognized, wow, what a gift. I can tell you that little boy is thriving and well. An incredible home. He ended up being placed for adoption despite incredibly dangerous circumstances. And just these little opportunities we have to be involved in the work of other people, such as the work here of Life Choices. I saw my mom helping to write pro-life legislation for our own legislators here in the state of California nationwide, being the ghostwriter behind legislation, behind speeches that were to call to mind the issue of abortion. I saw my mother every single year growing up while I still lived at home, donating her full weekend on Mother's Day to run fundraisers, waking up at about 3 a.m. and not sleeping much that next night, because at 3 a.m. on Saturday, we'd go and pick up roses and assemble bouquets, and at every single church within our diocese the next day, thousands upon thousands of bouquets of roses were sold at the parishes. And that was a way to help get some little bit of money to the crisis pregnancy centers there in San Bernardino where I grew up. I saw so many hours dedicated to this movement. I'll never forget when I was a little girl at home. I think my cousins were babysitting me because my mom and dad were gone. And we were watching on the television, and I was just excited to see my mom pass by the TV screen. But you guys want to know why she was there? Did you guys hear the story over the last week that came out in Indiana? 2,200 aborted babies were found in the home of an abortionist who has actually been arrested and a number of years ago served time in jail. 2,200 babies that were found, you guys, dismembered. Well, that was the story when I was a little girl. A number of aborted babies had been found in a storage container. And as my mom reminded me yesterday, a corporal work of mercy to bury the dead. And so they provided a burial for those little babies. It made national television. And I remember just being excited to see my mom on TV, but actually the reality of the story was that she was there mourning, her eyes weeping. because those babies, she was trying to honor the life of those children that had been lost. And I pray that people step up and help bury those 2,200 babies that were just found this past week. You guys, this is what we're up against. Sometimes you hear the numbers of babies that have died, the babies that have been saved. You guys have no idea. And even if only one child was saved here through life choices, my God, it would be worth it. And I share the stories of these different people and different things that are happening because the pro-life movement is so multifaceted. From praying for the abortion clinic, donating her time, talent, and treasures to places like Life Choices. But it also happens in the bathroom at Chipotle when you hear a 13-year-old girl who's pregnant and her only fear, the only thing between her and having an abortion is trying to figure out how to tell her parents that she's expecting a baby. And that's when they're called to speak up. I can't tell you how many times, whether it's been my hairdresser, who, by the way, her daughter ended up in the doors at Life Choices. And I got to see just about a year ago that baby girl with her birth parents and her adopted parents, living, breathing, joyful. I never even spoke to the girl. I just sent her to Life Choices. I was working in the office as she went and talked to Liz and the other counselors. And it was interesting because I remember she came up on the stage in the back. I had no idea she was there. She was there with the adoption agency to give her testimony. And she's staring at me and I'm staring at her. We only ever passed each other. She had no idea that I knew her mom. And she comes off the stage. I couldn't remember what she was saying. Do I know you? And she, yeah. And I said, what's your name? And she shared her name. And I said, I know your mom. She's my hairdresser. It's so good to see you. This is the way you can intervene in other lives. And I challenge you is, are you listening? Are you aware? Are you present? Do you hear what's going on around you? Or are you distracted by this dictatorship of noise that we live in with our cell phones and music and everything? Sometimes we just need to battle the distractions around us to be present to the lives that you can save now. You guys, your voice really does matter. Here's why. Look at the great impact we've seen just over the last couple of years with abortion. We've seen just the last couple months the removal of Title X funding. I'm talking about $60 million that is no longer going to only Planned Parenthood. Let me tell you, a lot of that Title X funding was going to other various pro-abortion groups. Title X funding is no longer accessible to anywhere that performs abortions or even refers for them. That money, for example, here in Southern California is being redirected to a place like Obria Medical Clinic that provides full medical care for women who are facing crisis pregnancy. Full OBGYN, gynecological work, you name it, the full workup for women's health, but it's life-affirming. We've also seen, because of that funding going out the door for Planned Parenthood just a couple weeks ago, 2 abortion clinics in the state of Ohio closed. These are just tiny little snippets of awesome news. And although there's other news too, this is the great news I want you to remember, because your voice matters. In the voting booth, on the streets, within your families, what kind of a home you have. We've seen major bans on abortion in states such as Alabama, Ohio, Iowa, Georgia. I could go on. The successes are incredible. So what can you do? It's not what can you do, what are you going to do? I really mean that, because it's too easy to let another day go by. What are you going to do? This is something I learned early on, is for some reason God had his hand working in my life. I got involved in pro-life work when I was very, very young, and my conversion of heart happened fully at 13. I said, I'm not going to do anything else. I made the mistake of saying yes. And I say I made the mistake, but it was the greatest decision. And I think of Our Lady, of her fiat, right? That Latin for yes. When that angel Gabriel came to her and said she was going to be the mother of God, imagine a young teenage girl, what she thought. But she said yes. She had no idea what she was getting into. Liz had no idea what she was getting into working in Life Choices.
I had no idea.
At the time, when she first really got involved with Life Choices, she was an empty nester, thought she was going to come in and have fun, helping to put together little gift baskets for the moms and maybe hold a baby or two. I wish it was that easy. We don't have the luxury of just doing the easy stuff, you guys. We have to get in there, get uncomfortable, get blocked on Facebook by family members, make people feel uncomfortable and awkward, but they know where the truth comes from. So here's what I want to tell you. There was recently, I did not watch the episode, and I 100% discouraged a television show. It came out on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why. Terrible show. Another topic. But 13 Reasons Why, one of the actresses recently went through an abortion, and in preparing for the scene, she went and visited a crisis pregnancy center. In the meantime, has been doing news interviews, the actress, talking about the terrible, terrible crisis pregnancy centers. A couple months ago, I did a video with a group called Jubilee Media, and I was one of 3 pro-life people debating 3 pro-abortion individuals, 2 of whom had had abortions. And I was telling them about the work of crisis pregnancy centers, and the women said, that's not true. That doesn't happen. I said, oh no, I work there. I saw it happen every single day. And I said, and there are thousands of them across the nation. She said, where does the money come from? Where does the car come from? Where does this tuition you speak of come from? Where does it come from? Because she couldn't fathom that all of a sudden this money pops out of nowhere and that it could have helped her keep her 2 babies. She didn't believe me. It was unfathomable to her to actually think that there's a room full of women right now willing to put their money where their mouth is, willing to step up and help out. And you can see the video online. It's just look up Jubilee Media, pro-life versus pro-abortion. I don't know if that part of the video made it into it, but it really stood out to me that people do not believe that crisis pregnancy centers do what they do. And you guys, a car sitting there, I've been there as I've been seeing other moms who have been saved from the horror of abortion, whose babies are living today, sign up other women facing crisis pregnancy for college. I've seen so many incredible things. Sometimes it's a matter of the counselor affirming that woman because she never received affirmation in her home. And that affirmation empowers her to be the mother that she's called to be to her child. Often it's years of follow-up, and let me tell you, it's sometimes years they're coming in with the challenging circumstances or the joyful moments too. Maybe a marriage, maybe another baby, whatever it might be, and they need that support and help. But also those who make the difficult decision and face the trauma afterward. The doors are always open at Life Choices. So my question to you is your home a life-affirming place of faith? People might not know, just like my dear friend doesn't fully get why there is something different about our home. But are you setting that pro-life example so that babies are living today just because you had a positive home environment? And I'm not saying perfect. My home was not perfect. It is not. But are you setting the example by inviting the people here to this event? What are you doing for life? I'm asking you. We've got time, talent, and treasures. I'm asking you to give your treasures today to Life Choices. Because people do not believe that the work of crisis pregnancy centers is possible. And let me tell you, it's not unless you lean in and listen to the needs of Life Choices today. So on your tables, you will find little envelopes with a pen. I'm going to ask you to take those out, slide that card out of the envelope. There's a little card here. I want you to go ahead and look at 2-sided. One side is monthly, it says monthly pledge. I'm asking you, yes, to keep the doors open of Life Choices every single month by helping us to know what our budget is. We don't receive any government funding, and in fact, that's kind of why the girls who are pro-abortion couldn't believe that crisis pregnancy centers do the work that they do. So I'm asking you to give monthly to Life Choices. I don't care if it's $5 and you're giving up your coffee drink for the month, or if it's $5,000 per month and you're giving up a whole lot more. But I'm asking you to give something every month. However small or large it may be, and let me tell you, the greater the gift, the more work we can do. And then on the other side, I'm actually asking you to make one gift today, as generous as you can. And I'm not asking you to say, okay, I'm going to give $20. If that's $20, I can tell you for me, that's a lot right now, right? And it may be so for you. But maybe you could give a little bit more. This is where you can direct some of your funds today to Life Choices. However much it may be, I'm asking you to make one donation of each, a monthly donation, and then a donation to Daily Life Choices to help save lives. And let me tell you, we need you involved in this mission. This is going to help keep you aware of Life Choices and the work that is being done there. It's going to help so that you bring the women in the door of Life Choices so that Liz and the counselors can do the incredible work talking to Pam. And you notice these little girls love Pam. Pam's one of the counselors here. And these little girls are walking back and forth around with her. They wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be here if these women hadn't spoken up and given their time. Thank you so much for being here and for being the voice for life that you are. We have young people in the back who are going to come around and collect these, so take your time to fill this out. You can pray about it, what you're able to give today, and we're asking that you return them today to help you make that commitment. Leave these in the box, in the baskets, and if you don't make it into the basket, please make sure it does on the way out, but let's try to get those in now. Thank you guys so much.